uh, with special guest and our expert, Mr. Vituba Putekar, and I will just give some introduction about today's expert. And this webinar is organized by Automobile Engineering Department along with the team Prayas of COE in road safety with IST chapter. So without much wasting your time, let me introduce today's speaker, Mr. Vituba, that if we see the academic credential of his career, then he has done B in engineering, automobile engineering in MH Sahu Siddiqui CO in Mumbai University. He has started his industrial career as a senior testing engineer since 2011 to 2017. During that period, he has worked and handled so many projects. I will give us some brief introduction about his career as a senior testing engineer. So he has worked with the route defining for different set of road requirement and data acquisition, reporting, keeping. He has also worked with the handling maintenance issue, test documentation work, instruction and maintaining the driver, commands, vehicle, process logs. Then he has started his career with the Seat Tire, Seat Limited as a manager in specialization with vehicle dynamics R&D. In that, he has worked with the subjective lead for domestic OE approval projects, project resource planning, testing program, coordination for joint OE testings, lead for regular domestic NPD and replacement market product development testing. He has also lead for subjective ride and handling evaluation of ongoing NPD and OE projects. He has also done some work with the brake testing with VPOX 3i and post processing. So if we look experience, then sir having the experience in R&D professional with more than 10 years in auto industry. So it is a great opportunity for all of us to gain some knowledge, and we will attending this webinar and we improve ourselves by gaining the knowledge. So without much wasting time, I would like to invite Mr. Utumba sir, and over to you sir. It is a pleasure to be with us. So sir, please.
Yeah, thank you, Yagneshji. So pleasure is all mine. Thank you all for inviting me, specifically Himanshu and Team Prayas and Yagneshji. So as sir, I've given a quite detailed description about my career progression so far. So I've had the privilege of conducting the physical testing for last 10 years, and in doing so, I've understood many things which we are usually aware about, but we tend to ignore them, and which becomes a safety risk in the long run. So through this presentation, I'll basically try to bring your attention to those general points, and then talking about things from a tire manufacturer's perspective. So specifically last 4 years I've been in and out testing the tires, so I have come to realize a few things which I feel might be useful to all of you, because owning a vehicle and driving a car nowadays is a regular thing. So yeah, I hope this presentation helps. I'll just begin with it. Okay, so I hope the screen is visible to everybody.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
so,
sir.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'll proceed. So this, since this topic is about road safety, I first would want to make this context a bit fundamental. Why the road safety is such an important aspect. So, like, everybody must be aware, the India's road infrastructure, or rather the road safety, is one of the worst in the world. Things are slowly improving. Government is taking enough efforts, but it will still be a long time before we come to a good level. So just to give you a few statistics, nearly, see this first chart, you'll see India and US comparison. So you'll see US is having almost 4 times, 2 million accidents a year, but the actual deaths are about 37,000, while India is having nearly 4 times less the accidents, but 5 times more the deaths. In a year, in a given year, about 150,000 people loses their lives to the road accidents, which roughly is about 15 people every hour. That is very high compared to any part of the world. The contribution of road accidents to entire mortality ratio is about 5% of the entire population. Overspeeding and then leading this overspeeding causing the loss of vehicular control is one of the biggest and single most important contributor to this death of 150,000 people every year. And because you all are young, I want to specifically emphasize on this last point. Nearly 50% of all the people who dies in the road accidents falls under 18 to 35 years group. So this is something to think about. All these graphs will say the same thing. You can see on this graph over here, overspeeding is contributing about 59% of the accidents. Then there is drunk driving, overloading, load protecting, and everything. So fault of the driver is one of the very important point over here. So I'll try to mitigate that through my understandings and my learnings. We'll proceed to next slide. Yeah. So how do we what is the approach here? How do we know the problem? How do we solve it? So there are basically 3 fundamental ways to look about it. One is improving the road infrastructure. But since from the previous page, you've understood road infrastructure only constitutes a smaller fraction of entire mortality ratio due to road accidents. So although it is an important, it's not the very prominent thing to look after. But of course, the improvements has to be there. Things have to come to a global standard. We still lack on better road conditions, surfaces, and then in case of emergency, there's no fast-paced action and in rescue operations and all. Well-designed intersections and junctions are still something that we need to, we would require going ahead, considering the number of vehicles that are adding in every year onto the roads. Ample service lane, well-designed traffic flow. Traffic flow is something that is almost entirely neglected on majority part of the road designs. So that is again an important point. Second is the behavioral aspect of this improvement process. So all said and done, you have the best infrastructure in the world. You saw from the previous slide that US is having 2 million road accidents in a single year. So what does that suggest? It doesn't matter if you have the best roads in the world, but if you don't adhere to basic safety norms and driving etiquettes, as accidents are prone to happen. So behavioral aspect is also an important part of this equation. You need to be aware of regular traffic rules. You need to start following safety prescriptions such as using seat belts, not overspeeding, adhering to traffic rules, no driving under influence, and then respecting the right of way. This last point, respecting the right of way, is something that we Indians have to really learn. So on every intersection or on every junction or a circle, everybody thinks that he has the first right of way, but that is not the case. A simple Google query would tell you on any circle, junction or intersection, what is the correct way to proceed and where your right of way is and which takes the precedence, which car or who should be permitted to go first. So that is something most people don't know about. Again, something to think about and implement in our regular life. And then the final part is vehicle safety. So with the advancement in technologies, starting from the normal brakings, the drum braking, then we moved to disc braking, and then finally we came up with ABS. So these vehicle safety systems are basically something to prevent the accidents in the first place, and in case there's an accident, then the function is to minimize the damage because of those accidents. So you'll see it is categorized under two broad spectrums. One is active safety system, which involves things such as ABS, EBD, traction control system, electronic stability program, and then emergency braking system, which is sort of autonomous system, which you would see on higher end vehicles such as Volvos and Mercedes. And then comes the passive safety, airbags and crumple zones and structural crashworthiness. Yeah, so I'll try to first finish the presentation, and then maybe if the time permits, we can take questions. I'll quickly go through this. So these are the three basic approaches to look at improving road safety. Okay, so since our topic is about tires, we naturally falls under this third aspect of road safety, which is vehicle safety, and specifically that I'll try to explain where the tire plays in a crucial role. So ABS is an active safety system. Then you have laminated windshields, crumple zone, passive safety, which something I explained. You have seat belts. Seat belts, this single item, seat belt, is one of the most important part of your safety systems. You'll have countless examples where people have literally walked away from very, very horrible accidents, all because they were wearing seat belts. And you'll see at the same time accidents where people have really gotten into nasty crashes, and having not worn the seat belt, they have really injured themselves badly. So seat belt is a very crucial part of this design. Airbags, you have airbags as passive safety system measure. Then you have advanced braking systems such as anti-lock, and then electric brake force distribution, and then brake assist in case of emergency braking activation. Then you have stability controls, traction control system, which understands if one of the tire is losing any traction available, and then adjust it with the help of actuators, with reduction in throttle, application of brakes, subsequently depending on which tire is losing it. And then oversteer, understeer control. Again, it also falls under ESP, which is electronic stability program. And then autonomous controls, lane assist, emergency braking, all that. So you saw this first braking system, and then this anti-lock braking system, stability controls, and autonomous controls. All this falls under active safety systems. So there's one thing basically common in all these active safety system is the tire. So no matter what you do intelligently on your vehicle, if your tire is just not performing to its optimum level, there's no point in that system or its tuning or its functioning if your vehicle can't stop or if your vehicle can't be controlled. So tire is an integral part of active safety to prevent the accident, to keep the vehicle under controllable limits all the time. And since we have established tires, in the coming slides, I'll explain how the tire and its parameters basically impacts our understanding of safety. So you have this basically tree diagram where you see automotive safety systems, two types, active safety and passive safety. Control systems, examples, electronic stability control, active anti-lock braking, then airbag, seatbelt, comfort zone. So out of this, the active safety systems are the ones which are linked with tire and its performance. So these are the broad parameters. I won't go into the details because these are quite technical terms. I just want to establish the general idea behind the tires and its impact on road safety. So these are the tire characteristics. Now that we have established how the vehicle dynamics and active safety are, at a common ground with respect to tires, I just want to, make an interesting comparison. So when I say vehicle dynamic envelope is basically, the name itself suggests it has to do with the vehicle behavior when it is in motion, and that entire, that performance is categorized, or rather it is the outcome of this 5 components, which we call as vehicle dynamic envelope, because each of them is individually important. Your body, which imparts the structural stiffness, structural strength, and then your steering system, which again, controls the behavior of your vehicle under motion, suspension and links. So again, an important part to even out the big bounces, and to keep the car on the road, that keep the tires, on the road all the time, no matter what maneuver you're doing. Wheels are equally important, and then tires. So this is the vehicle dynamics envelope basically. So I'll go a step further, and to explain how, again, the tire comes as a common part of active safety envelope also. So what is active safety, and how basically it is done? It's done with the help of all these intelligent applications. First is, you have sensors and actuators. So sensors basically tells or gets activated when there's something wrong. The typical case of ABS. So when you're driving on a bad road and then you suddenly want to brake, your rest of the 3 tires are able to understand your command, and then they are able to understand the braking requirement. So they start braking. But one of the tire, because it is on a bad patch of road, it doesn't generates that braking force required. So it starts losing it. The moment the sensors captures that event, they tells the ECU that something is wrong. I'll be explaining the same example again on the next slide with a better visual, but this is just to establish the understanding. And then ECU tells the system to mitigate that event and to avoid the further consequences. Intelligent algorithms are employed in understanding these events and analyzing the system behavior to avoid these events. And again, end of the day, tires have to obey every command given by driver and the systems altogether, and not lose and not shy away from the either stopping or accelerating or anything, the basic functionalities. Okay, so this active safety, there's a very important unit of it, very important part of it, which is the feedback. How is it so? I'll explain that. So a typical case, when drivers start steering any direction of steering, let's say, and then if the steering angle is more or the speed is high, and with respect to speed, if the angle is more, then what happens is your vehicle starts to lose control. So there's one example, the vehicle will either start sliding or it will start rolling like anything. So the moment that happens, these sensors provide an important information to ECU that, okay, there's something wrong. The grip is not being transferred, or the power is not being transferred efficiently onto the road. So you need to do something. Then ECU, with the help of all its clever algorithms, gets into the action zone. So it tells the systems to minimize some things, maximize few things. If we are losing this bottom example, if the car is sliding, it reduces the throttle, it reduces the power delivery, and then it goes high on the braking, depending on which tire is losing it out. So based on all those actions, finally vehicle regains the stability. So if I have to ask where all this started, basically, how the sensors came to know that there's something wrong with the vehicle, and then subsequent actions were taken to regain stability. So the term feedback. The moment the sensor senses something, they send a feedback to ECU, and then ECU gets into action, and then finally your vehicle gets the control. So the feedback is an important part, and feedback is also an important part in the earlier slides where I said about vehicle dynamics. So vehicle dynamics also focused about feedback. And how is it so? It is, again, I'll be covering in the next slides. So at this point, I want to, yeah, with this slide I want to make this general understanding in the public. You all are aware of the Formula One, so most of you might also be following the Formula One on regular basis. So every time the Formula One teams, they conduct the qualifying, or on the typical racing day, so they always come with three different sets in case of dry condition, and two different sets in case of wet condition. So why is that? Why is that? Why do you need three different types of tires, to match up the driving requirement or the power delivery requirement? Because the answer is quite simple. Because no matter how much amount of power your vehicle carries, matter how much amount of torque your vehicle carries, if the tires are not built to solve the purpose, or not, or tires are not built to the purpose, the all the torque, all the power will be virtually unusable if your tire is not doing the job it is supposed to do. So you see, most of you might also be aware that these color codes are basically something, they tell about tires. So this red is super soft, yellow is medium, and white is hard. So these are the tires designed specifically for different conditions to deliver the best combination of power and torque under different conditions. So the basic idea behind the slide is tires are designed on a certain requirement, and then that requirement user also has to be aware what the tire has been designed for, and the purpose, or rather the function it is providing on his specific vehicle. So there's one example I'll be giving in the coming slides. Yeah, so first let me clarify about vehicle dynamics and how it's an integral part of making sure of the road safety from the tires perspective. So vehicle dynamics basically deals with all these six characteristics. First is ride, noise, and rolling resistance. But the three that are highlighted in orange, braking, steering, and handling, these are the important items which directly deals with active safety and its various applications. So braking, why braking is important? Your ABS will not be any useful if your car can't stop, or if your car is taking way longer to stop. Steering is not, steering will be very horrible to control if your vehicle is not obeying the direction that you as a driver asking it to. Just to give an example, if you're driving and you need to, because there's a vehicle in front and you need to steer away from that vehicle, and you give that input, you maneuver away, but your vehicle still continues straight. Why is that? There could be various reasons, but the most obvious reason is your tire might have worn out, so it is not performing on its optimum level. It is not giving the grip level it should give to conclude that maneuver successfully, and to bring the car from the danger out successfully. So again, an important part, handling. You're driving on a speed and you see somebody stopping very abruptly in front of you, so you try to steer away. Now this time I'm focusing on vehicle's ability to steer away. If your vehicle is not handling correctly, or it is having troubles obeying your commands, it will go into either the huge roll, or it will go into skidding, and anything can happen. So again, all the while doing this, tire has to get on the ground and do the job it is supposed to do. So these three parameters are basically mainly important for active safety. One by one, I'll explain how they are important. Yeah, so again, we are back to the basics, vehicle dynamics envelope. So handling stability, the first part, very first thing I explained about. So there are two parts to it. Handling stability, there's one part which is driving pleasure, and then second part which is driving safety. So to give a typical example, so most of you would already have the personal vehicles, and most few of you would also have this one particular car, Volkswagen Polo. So if I have to ask a single question, which one you think is more enjoyable as a car to drive for a driver? The answers would be I am assuming, because this is, if somebody wants to answer this, which one you think more pleasurable to drive, a Volkswagen Polo or something like Maruti Swift? Okay.
Polo.
Yeah. So yeah, understood. So why is that? Why the Polo takes the front seat in case of driving pleasure? Because it is built in a way that it follows the driver's command to the very edge and to the very limit of tires' physical performance. So, and that is not only done with tires. There are several aspects to it, but it is something that is kept, that is designed with driver's requirement kept in the consideration. Similarly, the second aspect to handling stability is driving safety. So grip and response are the important part of it. In case you have a vehicle that is, not doing very well on the grip, or a tire that has worn out and has significant reduction in the grip, what would happen is every time you're taking a quick turn, your vehicle either would continue just going the way it was going earlier, or it would take the turn and then start skidding out left and right. So again, that would not impart a very particular confident feeling into the driver in case of safety. So stability is an important aspect of it. This graph over here, it's slight technical. I'll try to break it down to a simpler level. So this is basically the steering angle and subsequent torque built up in the vehicle. So the importance of this graph, I'll explain. So when you're driving on the high speeds, on the highways, so during those high-speed drivings, you don't typically move around your steering wheel quite a lot. The maximum movement that you do is generally between 5 to 10 degrees on each side of the steering wheel, starting from center, 5 to 10 degrees left, 5 to 10 degrees right. So that band is very critical when you're driving on higher speed, because that is the area which decides the tire, your turning direction. And if that band is not responsive, what happens is on the high speed you tend to go into more turns. So by the time you realize you have turned too much, it is already late. Or if it is designed with a poor feedback in mind, or somehow systems generate a very poor feedback of that slight steering maneuver. So what happens is you're not very confident with respect to what vehicle is actually doing against the command that you tried to give initially. So this graph is basically a graph between steering angle versus steering torque. So you understand there are two tires which are compared one to one. So there is no perfect answer to it actually. It depends on the vehicle. If I am designing for something like Polo, I would probably take a different approach. If I am designing something like Swift, I would take a different approach. So, based on the vehicle condition, these things have to be met. And because that graph is what gives you the confident feeling when you're driving on the higher speed. So it's just one aspect of handling stability. There's grip, there's roll and yaw control, then there's grip balance. Everything all together gives you that confidence. It is just one example for your understanding. And then comes the braking effectiveness. So one typical case I have to explain. There are two vehicles. Okay, so one vehicle is fitted with new tires just a week back, and then there's second vehicle that is fitted with its tire about 3 years back. So which one you think would probably deliver better in terms of emergency braking? I'm guessing it's the new one, of course, because you have more rubber, you have better tread contact with newer tires. So it's an important part, if the tire, and what would happen specifically with the older tire is, because it is not able to generate that grip, what would happen is the moment you try to, slam the brake, the vehicle that is on the older tires would start losing it. So ABS detects that. ABS asks actuators to release the brake, and then again its tire starts rolling. So it again actuates the brake, again the brake application, but same, because it's the older tire, it is not providing that traction. It has to activate the circle of lose the brake, reapply the brake, lose the brake, reapply the brake. So this thing goes on for about several hundred times a second. So the final outcome of this new tire versus old tire is, because the older tire is not able to generate that amount of traction that quickly, what happens is when you compare the braking distance, ideally the older tire gives you the higher distance, meaning it is taking longer to stop rather the tire that is absolutely fresh and having enough rubber on it. So an important point here is you need to be aware of your tires and their condition. I'll be covering that in coming slides. So yeah, braking distance and mu. So mu is tires coefficient of friction, and braking distance is the physical parameter. So braking distance, the definition itself tells how important it is for your active safety measures. So there are several ways for us wherein we realize how much mu actually the tire is generating, and then based on our experiences and calculations, we understand how it will perform actually in terms of field trial. So that is the way a tire company, not only CEAT but any other company, makes sure of delivering the good product to the consumer, for them to use it and be on the optimum safety limits always. And then these two parameters are basically a part of vehicle dynamics envelope, but they are not directly related with active safety, but they are indirectly related. And how is that? I'll tell. So ride comfort, as you can understand from the word itself, it talks about the comfort of the passengers or the driver sitting inside the vehicle, and how tire is dissipating those smaller bumps and irregularities. So what happens is when the vehicle is in tuning stages, so you can either make a vehicle that is absolutely splendid in ride, or you can make a vehicle that is absolutely splendid in handling. And then you can't make a vehicle that is absolutely splendid in ride and absolutely splendid in handling at the same time, because these two are sort of inversely proportional to each other. The moment you start putting more efforts toward ride, your handling tends to get lowered down. The moment you start putting more efforts toward handling, your ride start to get going down. So there is an optimum tuning that is required in this case. So why I said it is indirectly proportional, because you can't make a vehicle that is very good in ride and then expect it to behave stably under handling conditions, so as to have a better stability and then better safety feel. So then there has to be a compromise between how much actual comfort and how much actual handling can be achieved with respect to the vehicle that is there in the consideration. Let's say I have a vehicle like Toyota Innova. I can't design it for entirely handling. I need to be aware of passengers' comfort. So then ride takes a slight slight front position in the design consideration, but at the same time handling is also kept to an optimum level with respect to vehicle that size. You can't expect the vehicle of that size to maneuver like a Polo. It can't happen. So there is a basic fundamental difference of the design in both the vehicle. And then take the example of Polo. You can't design a Polo to give the maximum possible comfort to every individual that is sitting there in the car. I can say that from the experience. The people sitting in the rear of the Polo will always be, in a perpetual uncomfortable stage, because the vehicle has been designed to higher standards of handling. It is comfortable, but it's not comfortable. So that difference will always be there. So ride, when looking at the ride handling consideration, it is indirectly affecting handling and thereby indirectly affecting your active safety parameters. Similar case is with noise also. So the simple explanation I'll try to give. So vehicle noise, basically it is either structure borne or airborne. Airborne is something, wind noise we generally end up saying. So the very easily this can be understood is when you're driving the motorcycle, because during motorcycle riding the airborne noise is very high, and then you can very easily hear that on your ears. But the structure borne noise is something that you can only listen in the car. So structure borne can come from engine, it can come from tire and road interaction, it can come from bumps and potholes on the road. So why noise isolation is important, or rather why is it a part of vehicle dynamics in the first place, which is an essential part of vehicle safety? So the lower the noise level in the vehicle cabin, the more relaxed you are as a driver. The noise levels, the higher noise level very easily wears you down in the longer drives. So if you're driving a vehicle which is very high in the noise level, so you can't drive it for longer hours at a stretch, because the higher noise levels tires you down very quickly. So again, more the driver is tired, less chances of him being very active in the emergency scenario. All the amount of active safety can't help you if you don't apply the brakes in time. You see a vehicle, let's say I am driving for about 12 hours consistently, last 12 hours I'm driving, and I'm very tired, and I see a vehicle that is in the front, but because I'm tired, the brain takes a delay in calculating the requirement of braking, and then when I actually slam the brake, it is already late. And then even with the help of active safety, with the help of ESP, ABS, EBD, everything, I can't stop that vehicle from slamming to the vehicle that is in front. So a driver also has to be in the most optimum state for him to be responsive to the change of scenarios in the vehicle and around. So in turn, noise is important. The silent the cabin, better comfortable you are, and more active you are with respect to vehicle's requirement. And there are ways to understand how much the noise is being generated, how much the tire and road contact patch is generating the noise. So this tire contact patch noise measurement is a way to do that. And then there's in-cabin noise also, which measures the amount of noise that is getting filtered inside the driver cabin, or inside the car. So higher the amount, it's not ideal. So from the graph, you can see the bottom left graph, high frequency in cabin noise. You'll see the tire A is operating at about 62 dBA, while the tire B is operating about 59 dB. So which one you think would be more comfortable for longer journeys? Of course, it will be reference, because it is generating lower noise levels. So you'll have a silent cabin, you'll be more comfortable for longer runs. So that is a passive way by which indirect way by which we try to bring down the noise level, aiding the vehicle safety through the active safety systems and like that. So it's a interlinked connection altogether. And then there's aqua planning, which is very regular phenomena for our Indian roads. So aqua planning, the word tells you that it is something that is related with water. So in typical monsoon season, if you're driving and suddenly you come across a water puddle on the road, so what happens is, for a split second, your vehicle either swerves towards right or left depending on the road inclination. So that particular phenomena is known as aquaplaning. And the reason for aquaplaning is because the moment tire starts treading over that water level, the tire loses the contact between the ground by a few millimeters because of the thin water layer. And then because that loss in contact, vehicle momentarily starts either swerving towards right or left or anything. So that particular thing, aquaplaning, is again has to be controlled at the time of making the tire, and has to be validated with respect to after the tire has been developed or built. This thing has to be validated with actual testing. So there are two ways to do it: longitudinal aquaplaning and lateral aquaplaning. So longitudinal is wherein you're driving straight, and then on a straight patch you come across a water puddle, and then vehicle starts either left to right, it starts moving. So that is longitudinal aquaplaning. And lateral, as the name suggests, it is when you're trying to take a turn and then you come across a water puddle and then vehicle loses the control. So that is the lateral aquaplaning. So both things are measured with help of difference in the individual tire speeds, and then that is plotted and understood as which one is doing better, which one is need to improve, like that. If there's a tire that is not doing better, then the recommendation goes back to tire building team. So they make changes, and then again the validation is done to understand if it has impacted into any positive improvement. Like that, the aquaplaning is evaluated, and drivers are prevented from facing this thing in a severe way, and thereby helping the active safety cause. Okay, so now that I've spoke about vehicle dynamics and tire aspects and active safety altogether, I want to finally come to this point. What are the general conditions which are required to be maintained for a tire to perform optimally in everyday scenario? So I think we're about to last 3 or 4 slides now. So I'll quickly explain. Yeah, so tire wear, very simple thing. How, like most of us, we are not very sensitive towards tires need specifically, because the most important thing that any car owner considers is keeping the vehicle maintenance on the regular basis, either 5,000 or 10,000. But how many of you actually go out, take your vehicle out and check the tire pressures every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or once a month? Most of the people don't do that. So this not maintaining tires to a correct inflation pressure and then driving over longer periods with incorrect inflation pressure is a cause of severe tire wear. And as I have multiple times in the previous slides, I have explained how a tire wear is an absolute disaster recipe. So tire inflation and wear because of it. So the moment you have a tire that is overinflated or underinflated, it creates the wear pattern on the tires. Then there's tire rotation, which takes care of tire wear on different positions. So in India, we drive front wheel drive cars all the time. So what happens is because the vehicle is front wheel drive in nature, front wheel is taking care of steering responsibility as well as power transmission. So it tends to get worn out very, very quickly compared to rest, which only has to follow. Rear tire only has to, follow wherever the front is heading towards. So after about, let's say 5,000 kilometers or 10,000 kilometers, your tires on the front tend to have this higher wear pattern. So how do you normalize that? Because then what happens is you have a front end which is with higher wear out tires, and you have a rear end which is with lower wear out tires. So to balance that imbalance, you do the tire rotation. You move the front left tire to rear right, and then front right tire to rear left, and then you move the rear tire as it is towards front. Why is that done? And why is that necessary? Because it is basically designed or told or instructed for keeping the tire wear normal over all tires, and you have a vehicle that is consistent in terms of tire wear. Why is it important for us to have a vehicle which is consistent in tire wear across all 4 positions? Let's say you have a vehicle on which there is a left tire which is absolutely worn out, and then rest all 3 are correct in shape. So what happens is, then the moment you start taking left or right, the left tire's contribution goes to 0, and the right tire, the responsibility of left tire's job falls on the right tire. So the right tire limit hits very early, and then it starts losing. So because there's one tire that is not in the perfect shape, the other tire is also taking the hit because of it. So all tires have to be in absolute roadworthy condition all the time, and hence the rotation is important. Replacing the old tires once they are, almost to the flat stages. So this new versus worn tire, can you see on the this photo over here? On the right, you have this worn out tire. On the left, you have this newer tire. So anyone can guess the newer tire would deliver better level of performance, braking distance, better confidence, better, cornering confidence, everything better with newer tire. But with older tire, you'll struggle a lot. You'll struggle to stop. You'll struggle to steer. You'll struggle to drive around. And specifically in the wet conditions, the wet surfaces require tires to have better grooves and better ribs and all these channels to channel out the water and stop the car quickly, which old tire can't do. So the moment you see tires are reaching their end of life is the moment when you stop. Hello. Yeah, everything well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So in our regular life also, you have to, inspect your tires at least once a month. So the moment you see one of the tire or two of the tires are getting worn out, and typically any tire is supposed to run anywhere between, say 50, 60,000 to 80,000, depending on what type of tire you're using. There are like tires are designed very specifically to different purposes. So if somebody is driving a taxi, CEAT's Mileage X3 product is most suitable one because it is supposed to last about 90,000 plus kilometers, 1 lakh plus kilometers. But at the same time, if somebody is, enthusiast category and he wants a tire that is, behaving with respect to his commands, then he would have to go for a tire that is softer in compound, a little softer compared to Mileage X3. So what would happen is he'll wear out the tires even quicker. So 40,000 is the least you can expect from the tire. So keep a check on that, and then the moment you see tires getting worn out, you try to do the rotation. But by the end of 40,000 or the end of 38,000, you'll realize that you cannot rely on that tire anymore. So time to change. And yeah, the fourth point talks about it: correct replacement to match the rest of the tires for pattern and size. So this on the right side bottom, you see this car's photo with 3 sides CEAT and 1 other brand. So it is not only applicable for CEAT, but rather with any other company, the tires that you're using, be it MRF, Apollo, Pirelli, or Bridgestone, anything. So there are 3 tires of one make and 1 tire of different make. So that creates an imbalance, which is not an ideal case. What actually it creates is the steering aggressiveness or steering lightness. So then, because the steering feedback is not apt now, you are tend to go into more uncontrolled scenarios than the regular all CEAT or all same brand tires. So that is an important point. We generally, what happens is we see front right tire very worn out, so we go to the tire shop, we change it. So the only 1 tire is changed, and we try for a better tire. Let's say if you have a expensive tire, you go for a slightly budget oriented, and then you end up fixing a different tire of a different make. So that is not the ideal case. That is not the best scenario, because your vehicle has to understand the grip level. The ECU has to deliver on certain grip levels expected from the tires. So it is always suggested to go for the OE spec tires. The vehicle comes pre-fitted with certain company tires. So it is always better to go with those tires, because all the systems, ABS, ESP, EBD, everything is tuned with those tires in mind. So vehicle will always perform optimally with the highest possible performance on those tires. You can switch from one company to another based on your requirement, but the ideal suggestion is to do that. So safety risk, if you don't follow all this inflation check and tire wear check, and not matching the pattern or make, and then not doing the rotation, what happens is tire gets worn out, and then it doesn't deliver quickly on the requirement on the highways. Worn out tire also tend to be unstable on highway speeds, inability to do the maneuvers, and grip imbalance between front and rear, which sometimes can lead to oversteer or understeer. So oversteer is basically your front is not moving and rear is stepping quite a lot. Whereas understeer is when you give a turn, your vehicle just continues the direction it was in and not follow the intended turn. So that is the understeer. If there's a grip balance in tire, it is the outcome directly. So you have to make sure your tires are, of the correct make and correct pattern, and then they are inflated well, they are rotated well. Even even if you are following one single company, you need to make sure that all the four tires are of the same pattern. So even with one company, I take an example of Seat. So Seat produces about quite different variety of platforms or patterns. There's one Secura Drive, there's one Fuel Smart, there's one Mileage X3. So if you have about three Secura Drive, you can't fix one Mileage X3 because Mileage X3 is built with a different idea in mind. So it won't deliver on the requirement of remaining three tires. So you need to be aware of that also. You need to match up not only the make but also the pattern or the model of the tire. And then vehicle alignment. So this is something that we generally do only at the time of servicing, which is a good practice. But if you are somebody like owning a Volkswagen or a Skoda, the servicing falls at 15,000 kilometers. So at every 5,000 or 10,000, you must make sure that vehicle alignment is correct. So you all must be aware of all this alignment parameters: toe in, toe out, camber positive, negative, and then caster and all. So these parameters, if not to the correct spec, they induce the tire wear. Again, tire wear is recipe for disaster. I have explained in the previous slide. So you need to be aware of what are the current specs, and if the vehicle is not out spec on the suspension parameters, so you need to take care of toe in, toe out, and camber and caster and everything. Caster is generally not like vehicles are designed not to play with casters anymore, but camber and toe in is something still adjustable, and you can take care of your vehicle's tire wear pattern based on these alignment issues. So you come across your vehicle that has a tire which has almost become conical. You can see in the negative or positive camber, you see tire has become a conical shape. So that is directly indicating with the camber complication, the camber being out of spec. If it is conical towards inward, it is indicating negative. If it is conical towards outward, it is indicating higher positive camber. So you need to fix that up. Again, toe in, toe out. How to identify toe in and toe out of spec issues? You have the shoulder wears. You have a higher shoulder wear on the outside shoulder of both the tires of front. You understand that there is a toe in issue which needs to be sorted out. Similarly, if there's excessive inner shoulder wear, the toe out issue has to be ironed out first. So, and if you don't do that, again, tire wears out, in non-consistent pattern, which is again a safety hazard for you in dynamic conditions. So the quick points is with respect to, like, apart from all these extra explanations, the final things are avoid overspeeding, quite general thing, because your tires are designed to perform up to a certain speed in mind. Even your 5-star crash rating vehicle is also designed to perform within certain safety speed limits. You can't expect a Tiago to hold its structural crash worthiness on the speed of 200 kph. That can't just happen. So overspeeding has to be avoided unless you are professional and doing it for the sake of earning money. Don't do it otherwise. I can tell you that overspeeding, although it becomes that adrenaline boosting thing, but once either of the tire burst or vehicle starts spinning out of control, there's no way you can bring it back to control unless you crash it somewhere. No way you can control it. An overspeeding and out of control vehicle. So avoid overspeeding, avoid overloading. So all the suspension and tires and braking, everything is, while being developed and tested, there's an average or nominal load always in the calculation, and overloading the vehicle bring down those limits. So a vehicle that is overloaded does not perform to its optimum level. Unless it is an absolute requirement, don't do it. And even if there's an absolute requirement of carrying 5 people and then luggage on the car, then drive within safety limits. Don't overspeed, and don't start doing confident stunts and all. Just be away from that. Take care of the safety band, and then wheel balancing. So periodic, like vehicle alignment, tire rotation, wheel balancing is also a must, and it should be ideally coupled with the alignment period itself. If you have a car and vehicle wheel is unbalanced, so the moment you start driving off at the speed of 80, 90, 100 or 110, you start getting the speed wobbles. So these wobbles are basically coming because your wheel is not balanced. So and what do I mean by balancing? If I hang it on a shaft and I rotate it, so it should rotate without this left right wobble or any unwanted vibration. So that balancing, that dynamic balancing is must for your rest of the safety systems to function on the optimum level. So you must do it, and you must do it with alignment. So to summarize the entire presentation so far, we looked at how the safety is important for our entire generation. Road safety, how critical it is because of the number of people dying on the road every day, 15 people every hour. And then we looked at the ways of making the situation better through infrastructure, through behavioral, through vehicle safety systems. In vehicle safety systems, we looked at active safety and passive safety. Passive safety is a structural part of entire design. Active safety is something that is feedback based. So the moment vehicle feels something, or the tires or sensors feel something, they start acting, they start correcting the overload conditions. And then we looked at how the vehicle dynamics is again an essential part of your active safety. And by the virtue of vehicle dynamics, how the tire is an essential part of the entire active safety envelope. And then we looked at how vehicle dynamics, the braking stability, the handling stability, the aquaplaning, the noise, the ride are important aspects of delivering the active safety performance. And then we looked at the tire conditions that are required for optimum performance, such as rotation, avoiding inflation. You need to avoid overloading, overspeeding, everything, all these small parameters. So always you must drive safe, be aware of the safety limits, be aware of your own driving abilities, be aware of your car's driving abilities. Don't push it. An open stretch is an invitation of full throttle and high speed. As long as you're young, you tend to do that, but uh, I would ask you to refrain from it, because as I emphasized enough, that a vehicle that is overspeeding and out of control, you can't bring it back. Take care of your tires, understand the wear pattern, do the tire rotation, minimize the wear gap, so as to have the vehicle as a component, as a entire system performing to its optimum condition. I think with that, I'll conclude this session. Hope everybody has understood things. And if you have any questions, please fire up.
So from the participants, any questions? If you have, kindly ask to the speaker, expert speaker. Sir, there is a one question in chat box, sir.
Okay. Can we replace 3 tires and use fourth one as a spare wheel? Yeah. So when the fourth one is already new and one good. Okay. So yeah, this is a typical case. What happens is, okay, first is what is TDI marking. So TDI is basically trade wear indicator. You Google it, you'll find a photo of ridges in the tires groove. Just a moment, if I can find it quickly. Okay, I'll share this. Tab. Okay, so can you see this small ridges in the groove of the tire? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah, so these ridges, they basically tells the limit up to which you should be using your tire. Once the tire is flattened out to, to the level of these ridges, that is the ideal time when you should be replacing your tire. So you should not be pushing tire after, these tread wear indicators are reached. So that is first question. Be aware of that. Second question is, can we replace 3 tires and use fourth one as spare wheel? See, the typical condition we come across is are one of the tire gets damaged, or it gets worn out because of suspension issue or brake issue. So in that case, we replace our that particular tire, only one tire. So to avoid that grip imbalance, what I would suggest is to bring the rear tires to the front, and if the replacement tire is on the front, keep it on the rear, so as to have the best performing tires. If there's only one tire that is best performing, keep it at the rear. If you're replacing 2 tires, make sure you're putting them on the front, and worn out tires on the rear. I hope that answers your question. Should we deflate tires a little bit before going on long highway journey to prevent hot air expansion or busting a tire? Yeah, so see,
Sir, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
But
yes.
my question was, I already have 4 tires, which are, when I purchased my car, at that time I had, right? Now, after driving around, let us say 60, 70,000 kilometers, I need to replace my tires. But my spare wheel is already new. So do I need to change all 4 tires together, and or I can change 3 tires and use the 4th one, which is already new?
Okay, so nowadays what happens is, Parthesh, so the spare wheels that come with tires, come with vehicle, is not the correct size, or it's a size smaller. So if I have a Polo, and that is 185 60 15, so it's a 15-inch size. It has come with 15-inch tire size, but the spare wheel is 14-inch, and they do that to save the cost. So it's not an ideal scenario where you can use the spare tire as the 4th one. But if you have an older vehicle that has a new tire, so instead of replacing all 4, you replace only 3 and use this new tire. Make sure you are matching the pattern and make, and then you're like one of the old tires, you can keep it as a spare one. But still, that is not a very ideal scenario, because you never know when you're going to need your spare tire. So always it's handy to have a good spare tire with you. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
So next question is, should we deflate the tire? Okay. So generally what we do is, when we get the pressures, get the tires to a petrol station, and we ask petrol attendant, that station attendant, to inflate the tires. So he does it arbitrarily. He does it by his example, by his own experience. Sometimes they set it at 32, sometimes they do it at 34, sometimes he set it at 28, anything. So every vehicle and every vehicle's design is done with a specific pressure value in mind. So you can find that on a you can find those pressure values on your door, vehicle door, either on the driver side door or passenger side door, and you'll find the recommended pressure. So it is always better to adhere to those pressure values, and then even it doesn't matter if you're driving on highways or bad roads or city rides, anything. If you're following those pressure values, you should be just okay. But if your car maker says to you, keep 28 psi all the time, and then you're actually inflating it to 36 psi, then or your tire is inflated to 36 psi, then that is not an ideal scenario, and it won't burst as such, but it would also be due to the condition at what speed you're driving. So it's always better to adhere to company provided recommendation. So you can find them on your car door. So, sir, what's the flat spot? So nowadays you don't get to see flat spots, but flat spots usually they were the outcome of earlier non-ABS vehicles. So what used to happen is when you brake a non-ABS vehicle and then the tire limit reaches, so after that tire does not move, or rather brake just hold those tires in place, and vehicle only skids, plain it skids without tires moving. And because of that skidding, tire loses its bottom portion, which is in the contact with ground because of the heat generation. So that flattened part is the flat spot basically. Will it affect if we use one tubed and other tubeless tires? Yes, it would. The like you either use all tube or all tubeless. But nowadays, with respect to cars, especially, there are no tube tires anymore. It's only tubeless tires. So I don't think you'll be in this situation at any time soon. How we reduce the chances of busting tires when it goes to a pothole? Yeah, so you do that by driving slowly, and when you come across, if you're driving on higher speeds on highways, even then if you're between 80 90 and you come across a pothole and it end up damaging your tire, so the first reaction in that event is vehicle will try to follow your steering movement. Okay, so let's say you're taking a turn, you're on a high speed, or your steering is slightly, because of that pothole, your steering is slightly tilted towards right or left. So the moment vehicle goes into unbalance, it will trace that direction. So you need to be very frank with you, unless you have practiced that in several times over, you can't really control vehicle going out of control, vehicle going over a pothole and then losing control. So to reduce the chances of bursting of tire when it goes over the pothole, drive slow. You try to understand the road in front. If you're driving on new roads, always try to be extra careful. The roads that you very regularly take, you can be relaxed on those, but on the newer roads, it's better to take the safety consideration. And even if you spot something wrong, you should be in the speed where you can stop within time before hitting that pothole or hitting that animal that is crossing the road. So just driving carefully is the optimum solution to it. Does the extra weight affect tires? Extra weight, by that do you mean in the car, more passengers and luggage, you're saying? Okay, so okay, so I'll explain it anyway. So extra weight, yeah, it does affect. So if I'll give you an example, if my vehicle is supposed to stop below 40 meters when I'm stopping from 100 to 0, and if I'm loading the vehicle to full overload plus luggage, then it would go beyond 40. So like that difference always comes. Which education you have taken? Yeah, I've done my Bachelor of Engineering from Mumbai University. Jagnesh sir spoke about the college earlier. It is Sabu Siddiq Engineering College. It was the only college at the time of which was offering automotive degree. So does atmospheric pressure in tires affect while inflating tires, and should we first let some air out and inflate? That is only the case when you are doing the hot refilling. If you're
Sir, I was asking like in summers and what conditions of the environment, sir.
Okay, understood. So in summers, see, if you're just taking out your vehicle from the parking and heading straight towards a like service station where you can get the tires filled up, so during that small run, it should not be an issue. Tires operating temperature is way higher than our summer conditions, so it's not an issue directly. But it is only an issue when you are inflating or reducing the tire pressure after 100 kilometers of driving. Then you need to bring down the pressures to a very low value and then inflate it again to avoid that extra pressure because of heat. Which type of tires are used? Has that answered your query, Smith?
Yes, sir. I have some queries, sir.
Yeah.
Like सर अगर हम एटमॉस्फेरिक प्रेशर टायर का है वो गलत दिखाता है ना सर, मतलब इन्फ्लेट करते वक्त अगर ऐसा हुआ तो।
Yeah, in the hot conditions, you'll always find 2 to 3 psi more than the original condition. So, if you originally filled it at 30 psi, and agar tumne 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers, anything higher than that, if you've driven, then the pressure would be about 32, 33 psi like that. So, that is you need to consider the hot condition during that calculation. So, if after hot running you want to reduce your pressure level to 28, then you can't simply drop 2 psi. You need to bring down the pressure to, let's say, 10 or 15, and then inflate it from there.
So it's like a 1-2 psi variation for,
Yes.
for atmospheric pressure.
Yeah, due to heat.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So which types of tires are used in military vehicles? So military vehicle tires are again not very straight answer. They are built to different purposes. So most of them they are designed with the bad roads in mind. So they have a very huge tread blocks. You'll see this bigger chunks of rubbers. So that helps them in driving on the bad roads. What is TCS? TCS is traction control system. So that system basically understand if one of the tire is losing the grip, and then it responds by applying either brakes or reducing the acceleration, or stopping the power delivery to that particular tire. So that is traction control system. What is the new generation tire according to you? So yeah, the new generation tires, there are many concepts, but one that has actually taken shape is two-wheel. So you see those are airless tires, and basically you have this wheels, and then there's this outer layer. So those tires are more prone to bad roads, and they tend to do well with these potholes and all. Which is the best Seat tire for cross SUV like Creta? Okay, so Seat does offer a few SUV specific patterns, but again, those patterns are also like different requirements. If you have a very you are someone who tend to go off-roading quite a lot, there's one pattern for you. Then you are someone who goes mostly on the highways, then even on the SUV there's one pattern for it. So if you want for your own car, you can contact me later on. I can give you a better idea about it. What type of tires are more effective, tubeless or tube? Tubeless tires and tube are both on different vehicle categories. They are used majoritarily. So tubeless tires nowadays, all cars come with tubeless tires, and tube tires are still used on heavy vehicles. So they offer certain advantage, which is not so well connected with our typical passenger segment of cars. So those passenger car segment mostly not, it's almost entirely uses tubeless as the option. Hollow chain structure they can achieve. Yeah, NASA is experimenting with something like hollow chain design and all. So not very well versed with that.
So sir, can we conclude the session? So many questions also raised by the participants. But sir, actually, I would like to say that this is the first time that we have seen during this pandemic lockdown, we have arranged so many webinars as well as the FDPs. But today is the first time we have seen that the only one component like tire, there is actually a new era, and someone is presenting on the tire as well as how it is affected with the road safety. So this is the first time, and you see, sir, questions also maybe come from the participants. Different. Otherwise, it was earlier. It was a very traditional that the electric vehicles and all that common. What we can say that generalized topics we have present. But this is the first time that only a one component like tire and how it does affect with the road safety. This is really interesting, sir. And we would like to thank you very much, sir, on behalf of CVM University, Lady Patel Institute of Technology and Department. You have spent your time as well as it is such a really interesting webinar, and we're getting the so much knowledge as a part of road safety and some parameters. So we would like to thank you, sir, and we always welcome you, sir. Be a part of family.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So it was a pleasure for me also explaining all the things and what I've learned from experience so far. So I have given my email ID. So in case anybody of you have any specific questions, you can drop always a mail and I can come back to you. And thank you for inviting me, sir, and Himanshu and team. Thank you all.
Always welcome, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you so much, sir.
Thank you.
sir.
Yeah.
So we conclude the session.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody. Enjoy your weekends. Bye-bye.
Have a good day to all participants.